UFC 309, Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic was this past weekend, and I'm going to give you guys my top 3 takeaways from the fight card. I'm going to start with a couple honorable mentions, then I'm going to get into my actual list, going from 3 to 1, 1 being my biggest takeaway from UFC 309. Before I get into them, do me a favor, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not. I would really appreciate it. And let me know, what was your biggest takeaway from UFC 309? Let's start off with my first honorable mention. I have 2 honorable mentions for you. And I'm guilty of this. The fan base is guilty of this. The UFC is guilty of this. Dana White is guilty of this. Stipe Miocic never got the respect that he deserved. And I'm not talking about in particular for this fight, because he was older, he was inactive. But I just feel like the course of his career, he never truly got the respect that he deserved. I mean, I will never forget when he got knocked out by Daniel Cormier. And at this point, Stipe's already considered the greatest heavyweight of all time. He's defended his belt. And people literally pushed for DC versus Brock Lesnar. That's when they had the whole WWE altercation, and Brock came in the ring and pushed DC. And they didn't even give Stipe. They didn't even give Stipe a post-fight interview. He waited around. I remember being so infuriated that night that Stipe didn't get his post-fight interview, and he waited around waiting for it. And they didn't do it because they had a Brock Lesnar DC altercation where they're pushing and shoving each other in the cage. Keep in mind, Brock Lesnar hadn't won a fight in years. His last fight, he tested positive for PEDs. And they were setting up a heavyweight title fight for him instead of the guy who was considered the GOAT heavyweight, Stipe Miocic. But going into this fight, I know a lot of people were disrespecting Stipe and giving him no chance, and rightfully so. I'm not really talking about that. I'm just talking about historically, he just hasn't got the appreciation that he truly deserves from the UFC, from Dana White, and he retires in the cage afterwards. We all knew this was most likely coming, win or lose, for Stipe Miocic, and he never got like a retirement package. Carlos Esparza gets a retirement package, but Stipe Miocic doesn't. I mean, they were hyping him up prior to the fight. Oh, he's the heavyweight GOAT, and he has all these title defenses at heavyweight, more than anyone in history. We can't even get a retirement package for him. We can't get a proper send-off for him because we're never going to see him again. He's going to disappear. You know, what are they going to do, put him on commentary? And I know, even myself, people are going to point out, Joe, you were disrespecting Stipe into the lead-up. Everything I was saying was facts. Inactivity, folded like a lawn chair in his last fight. That doesn't change the fact that he was a very good fighter, a great fighter even, and one of the first true athletic heavyweights. You know, most of the heavyweights are just fat guys with no stamina who have knockout power. Stipe wasn't that guy. He was like the 235, 245 type guy. Sometimes he weighed in a little bit more than that. And he was an athletic guy. And, you know, he had a good title reign. I picked him in every fight except the Francis Ngannou second fight and No, I picked him in every DC fight. I picked against him Francis Ngannou and Jon Jones. That's it. This guy was truly great at heavyweight. Now he's gone. He deserved a retirement package. He never got the respect that he deserved from fans or the UFC or Dana White. Next honorable mention, and the last honorable mention, I think this is going to piss a lot of people off. I am sick and tired of multiple pay-per-views per year turning into Donald Trump political rallies. And I understand that he's famous. I understand that he's the next president of the United States. And I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, whatever you want to be, that's fine. I don't think the majority of people want to tune in and see the same celebrity, regardless of what kind of celebrity they are, on the TV 150 times over and over and over again. I mean, I thought that Rogan and Dana White were probably going to blow him live on pay-per-view. That's what it felt like. I mean, it literally felt like some political rally, and I missed it, but they did like a whole like promo package. They got all these like Republican celebrities, politicians, and I think a lot of people, myself included, tune in to watch the fights. And I know a lot of people, you say, oh, keep politics out of sports. And Dana White says, the UFC is not political. There's literally a clip where Dana White says, you can tune in for the fights and we're not going to get political here. And that's all they do every time he shows up. I mean, every moment. I can't remember what fight it was. I want to say it was Dustin Poirier, Benoit Saint-Denis. There was a big moment. I think it was the knockout, and there was stuff going on in the cage. And instead, they're just panning to him. And at UFC 309, it was like every 5 seconds, like Charles Oliveira looks over to the left, and Anik's like, the former lightweight champion Charles Oliveira sharing a somber moment with the president of the United States. It was like, It was almost becoming sexual. That's how redundant that it was in the way they were talking about it. And I understand it kind of elevates the sport to have someone of such a celebrity status attend. But I know I can't be the only one that's getting tired of having politics infiltrate everything in life. You go on, Twitter or X, if anybody calls it. It's nothing but political stuff now. You tune into the UFC, nothing but political stuff. And I thought this was coming to an end after the beginning of November. I really thought it was. It doesn't seem like there's going to be an end in sight. I'm tired of the UFC holding pseudo-political rallies. And for the people who have to force it into every discussion, whether it be an MMA live chat, an MMA comment section, I'm sure there'll be people who force it into discussion down in the comments right now. You're a weirdo. You're a weirdo. You don't have to obsess with politics 24/7. We can just talk about what's going on in the sport. And I'm just tired of it, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's move on to my number 3 takeaway. And maybe this is going to be popular. Maybe this is going to be unpopular. And to be honest, I've already had this opinion going into the fight card, but it just solely reaffirmed it at UFC 309. And that is that Bo Nickal is a literal scrub, and he will never beat anybody in the UFC, and he does not belong on any pay-per-view main card ever. He went out there against Paul Craig, and I'm probably going to make a dedicated video on this because he's been saying some delusional things afterwards, talking about the commentary team. He looked like absolute dog shit against Paul Craig, and he's just an industry plant. I've been saying it for a while. He's Dana White's lapdog. He's an industry plant. He's a spoiled brat. I mean, teacher's pet. What more names can I come up with Bo Nickal? This guy is damn near 30 years old. I think he's turning 29 in a month. Okay? We got to stop acting like he's Raul Rosas Jr. coming in at 18 years old or 17 years old maybe. I don't even remember. One of the youngest guys ever. He's damn near 30 years old. They literally put him in there with a bum of Paul Craig who has no hands at all, who's been KO'd brutally so many times in his last few fights and finished. And he went out there and shit the bed, arguably lost the first round in my opinion. And then acts like, he mentions Khamzat Chimaev's name on a regular basis. And then he goes out there afterwards, and again, I think I might make a video on this. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. But he's like, yeah, I was disappointed in the commentary team. The commentary team was literally sucking him off. Like, man, I can't believe he's standing in front of Paul Craig. Like, Paul Craig had some elite level striking. I mean, this guy is so hyped up and promoted by the UFC, and it's nothing more than propaganda. I am telling you right now, and I've been saying this for a while, Bo Nickal will never be anything in the UFC. He's a marketing ploy. He's an upgraded version of CM Punk. That's literally what he is. Okay, and I know CM Punk was a WWE wrestler and Bo's NCAA, Penn State wrestler. Yeah, that's all he talks about. I'm pretty sure he talks about that at dinner every night. This guy isn't good. He's already almost 30 years old. He's, a year away from being 30 years old. And people are acting like he's magic. Like, he was comparing himself to Ilia Topuria in an interview with Ariel Helwani. He's not good. He looked like shit against Paul Craig. He acts like he had an amazing performance. The whole crowd was chanting overrated. And the only reason I'm really talking about this is because there's some people truly buying into this hype. I don't even think this is up for debate. Paul Craig is not good. Paul Craig is a washed up dead body. Okay? I would take any guy on the street in a boxing match against Paul Craig. Bo Nickal looked horrible. He barely won. He acted like he dominated, acted like he had a great performance, cried about the commentary team. This guy is nothing more than a spoiled brat who's surrounded by yes men, and they're going to baby him for another couple years, but eventually he will get exposed. They're going to give him bombs for at least another 3-4 fights. He'll probably only fight twice a year. And eventually when the time comes, when they finally try to throw him in there with someone decent, he's going to get exposed badly, and he's already been exposed in my opinion. I mean, look at the way Cody Brundage was throwing him around. Okay? Look at how badly he struggled with Paul Craig. He barely even landed on him other than the third round. Lost the first round in my opinion. Should be 29-28 decision, not 30-27. And I just think when you are already underskilled outside of your wrestling and you are surrounded by yes men and the UFC president's hyping you up and everyone's telling, oh, Bo, you're so great. You're going to be a future star. And it just goes to your head. And I just think it's setting him up for a rude awakening in the future. And I just want to point that out to everyone. If you believe in the hype, you're just falling for UFC propaganda. I'm telling you right now, he doesn't belong on a pay-per-view main card. Now let's move on to my number 2 takeaway from UFC 309. This may single-handedly be one of my greatest takes of all time. And this is really a takeaway that's been manifesting for 2 years now. Michael Chandler ruined his career. He sat out since November of 2022, coming off a stoppage loss against Dustin Poirier. He hoped and prayed and groveled and begged for a Conor McGregor fight that did not come to fruition, okay? He lied and teased, oh, it's going to happen on this date and that date and this date and that date. Never came to fruition. Fans were buying wolf tickets. If you bought UFC 303 tickets, you should be pissed at Michael Chandler for selling you wolf tickets. If you bought 303 tickets, you should be pissed at Dana White, who even has now openly said, yeah, I didn't think he was going to fight in 2024. Didn't think it was going to happen. Chandler not only sat out for 2 years in his late 30s, groveling and embarrassing himself, begging for Conor McGregor to show him attention. Then when he finally got in the cage against Charles Oliveira, he got absolutely dominated outside of some moments in round 5 where he brutally cheated with back of the head shots. Did an entire video on it, okay? Go watch that video. I break it down in depth, in slow motion, all the fouls, because he cheated throughout the fight. But that's not it. That's not the worst part. After all this, waiting, sitting out for 2 years, almost 40 years old, groveling and embarrassing himself, and he left his family for 26 training camps, and he lied to the fans over and over and over again. He then has the audacity to get on the mic after trying to cheat his way to a win against Charles Oliveira and call out Conor McGregor again. And since when are we giving losers of co-main events, guys who have 2 wins in the UFC, one of those most recently coming against Tony Ferguson, why are we giving them post-fight interviews? Like, you literally just got dominated by Charles Oliveira and you get a post-fight interview now? He gets on the mic and says, Conor McGregor, get your house in order. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. This guy is annoying. This guy prances around holier than thou. I'm a Christian. Goes into every fight and cheats over and over and over again. And then the cherry on the top, he says, I want Max for a BMF too. BMF? You need the PMF belt because you're a pussy. And I don't care. Oh, Chandler's so exciting. He's so exciting. He cheats nonstop. He cheats nonstop. He grovels to another grown man. He messages MMA YouTubers online saying, yeah, look at me. I made the right decision. His career is over. Came back and got brutalized by Charles after sitting out for 2 years. You know what? I think he should wait another 2 years for McGregor. Wait till 2027. I made a thumbnail maybe like a year ago, maybe 6 months ago. I don't remember at this point. And it said 2026, and it was a Chandler interview. I mean, it's not far off from happening, okay? Dana's saying Conor's coming back in late 2025, but Chandler absolutely obliterated his career. If anyone still likes this guy, I don't know what to tell you, because, I mean, the way he cheated on Saturday should piss everyone off. Fence grabs, glove grabs, back of the head shots, eye gouges, everything under the sun, and then he begs for Conor again. Begs for Conor McGregor. I swear on my life, if I got to listen to this man grovel for more, you know what? I can't even talk about this anymore, but if he grovels for Conor McGregor in more interviews, I'm going to have to cover it on the channel, okay? Because I got to give the people what they want. But Chandler ruined his career. I've been calling that for 2 years. He should have hired me as his manager. I would have saved his entire career. Left his family early January for a mythical fight. I think that's enough for that takeaway. Let me know what you guys think about that. Moving on to my #1 takeaway from UFC 309, and that is that the UFC absolutely needs to make Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, period. I don't care what Jon Jones's demands are. I don't care if he wants 30 million. I don't care if he wants 40 million. The UFC needs to make it happen. I mean, a Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall pay-per-view has to generate over $100 million in pay-per-view sales, plus a crazy gate. So we're talking, what, maybe 150 million, 200 million generating out of that pay-per-view, just that fight alone. You can get Saudi Arabia involved. They could potentially sponsor the event. It could be, even in Las Vegas still. It could be in Saudi Arabia. Jon Jones wants life-changing money. I believe right now, we don't know, this is pure speculation, he's probably making somewhere between $10 and $15 million. Dana White sucks him off. Oh, he's the pound-for-pound #1 fighter, even when he's not fighting. He's the GOAT of the sport. Well, pay him like it. Pay him like it, because at the end of the day, he's done enough. His legacy is set in stone. He can retire and never fight Tom Aspinall. But the fans demand that fight. The fans want that fight. The fans want the titles unified. Dana White better pay the man. He already fumbled Francis Ngannou because he's an egomaniac. He's got to pay Jon Jones. Jon Jones says, I want that FU money. Dana better pay him that FU money. I know people are probably like, Joey, when you were talking recently, I posted recently online, I kind of didn't want the fight to happen anymore. I was kind of being satirical. Fans are being crazy. They're like, yeah, Tom definitely beats Jon Jones. And I said, look, these Tom Aspinall fans who were dick riding Tom so hard, but it's really a Jon Jones hater. Most of them aren't even real Aspinall fans. I said, look, they're so sure Tom wins. I hope Jones just retires and says, I'm done. Just to piss them off. But at the end of the day, I want to see the fight. It's a banger matchup. I think Jon Jones wins. I would love the victory lap that I would get after Jon Jones beats Tom Aspinall. I just hope Dana makes it, because the fact that they fumbled Tom Aspinall, or not Tom Aspinall, Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou, the fact that we have Jon Jones, Francis Ngannou, and Tom Aspinall, and potentially none of them may ever fight each other, is an absolute travesty to the sport. So I don't care what Dana has to do. He has to make that fight. And it should happen relatively soon, because the clock's ticking for Jon Jones. I don't think Jon Jones is a natural heavyweight anyway. And he's getting older. He's suffering, he suffered that injury. I don't think more inactivity will be good for him. So if I'm Jon Jones, I'd want to get back in there ASAP. So maybe Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall in March. Maybe it could happen at International Fight Week next year, which would be summer, June, July of 2025. But Dana White better find a way to make it happen. We already lost Jones versus Ngannou, which that's the one fight that we lost that truly pains me. I really wanted Jones versus Rumble back in the day. It didn't happen because of the car accident that Jones got into, where he hit a pregnant woman at a red light, and apparently she broke an arm or whatever. I believe he was drinking and driving. Nobody ever says that. That's why he ran off. But some people don't say, I don't mention that enough, so I figured I'd mention it. There's a couple fights that are just the ones that got away. And I feel like if we don't get Jones versus Aspinall, the only person to blame is the UFC. They need to pay the man. Dana White went at the press conference, said this is going to be the biggest heavyweight fight of all time. By the way, I think Jones versus Ngannou would be bigger, but at the end of the day, Ngannou's not with the organization anymore. Dana better pay accordingly, and he better pay Tom Aspinall well as well. Because Tom Aspinall, there is hype behind Tom Aspinall. He's gone out there. He's generated hype for himself. He has crazy KO power. He could be the future of the heavyweight division. They better pay him as well. The UFC and Dana White better make it happen. They better not be stingy, and they better make Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall ASAP. It better happen by summer of 2025. It better be booked. That's a mega fight. I can't wait. They better make DDP versus Khamzat Chimaev as well. But yeah, those are my takeaways from UFC 309. Let me know if I missed anything that you thought was major that happened at the event. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.